Welcome back, kindergartners. Let's do our recap of chapter 4 before we go on to chapter 5. So if you remember in chapter 4 of My Father's Dragon, the little boy actually made it to Wild Island. And we were able to add some animals to our wall right here. We were able to add all the different animals that he either heard or saw on Wild Island. So if you remember, and I'll show you some pictures. It's always nice to do a little picture walk. The little mouse was the first animal that he came in contact with. And if you remember, the mouse is the one who thought that his knapsack was a very funny looking rock. And then he was in the dark, he couldn't see, and some animals started talking to him and they thought he was Monkey. And those animals happened to be tortoises, which is another name for turtle. And you can see they both start with the letter T, and the tortoises looked like this. And then while he was walking through the bushes, he came across wild boars. And if you see, the wild boars look very similar to, like a wild pig. So that's what the boars look like. So he definitely saw some animals on Wild Island. And he also learned that he needs to keep his tangerine peels in his knapsack, because as he was eating them, he was throwing them on the ground. And that was a big clue to these wild animals that there's someone on the island. And they don't actually know if it's a someone. They call it the invasion. And what an invasion means is somebody who comes to a place without being invited. And that's exactly what the little boy is. So today we're going to continue on in our story onto chapter 5, which is My Father Meets Some Tigers. And of course you want to make sure that you're ready. So you want to get out your map and your checklist of what is in Elmer's knapsack. And first, let's look at our map. Now I have this big map on the wall, but I wondered if you could find the tiger on your map. I can actually see it on this one, even a little bit better than on this giant one. It looks to me like the tiger is right here in the middle. So if you want, you could circle that, or you could wait until we're done reading the chapter and maybe continue on, because I think we drew our line, remember, all the way around Wild Island. And so we can mark this when we're done, or you could circle it right now. It is your map after all. And we'll see what he decides to use out of his knapsack at the end of the chapter. Okay? All right. My father meets some tigers. The river was very wide and muddy, and the jungle was very gloomy and dense. Dense means the trees are all very close together. So you can imagine if a jungle is gloomy and dense, it must be very dark and a little bit scary, I would think. The trees grew close to each other, and what room there was between them was taken up by great high ferns with sticky leaves. My father hated to leave the beach, but he decided to start along the riverbank, where at least the jungle wasn't quite so thick. He ate 3 tangerines, making sure to keep all the peels this time, and he put back on his rubber boots. My father tried to follow the riverbank, but it was very swampy, and as he went farther, the swamp became deeper. Swamp means it's a lot of plants with a lot of water. So it's kind of like you're walking through muddy water, which has really high plants too. So you can imagine, even if you had boots on, that probably wouldn't be very comfortable. When it was almost as deep as his boot tops, he got stuck in the oozy, mucky mud. My father tugged and nearly pulled his boots right off, but at last he managed to wade to a drier place. Here the jungle was so thick that he could hardly see where the river was. He unpacked his compass and figured out the direction he should walk in order to stay near the river. But he didn't know that the river made a very sharp curve away from him, just a little way beyond. And so he walked straight ahead. As he walked straight ahead, he was getting farther and farther away from the river. It was very hard to walk in the jungle. The sticky leaves of the ferns caught at my father's hair, and he kept tripping over roots and rotten logs. Sometimes the trees were clumped so closely together that he couldn't even squeeze between them and had to walk a long way around. He began to hear whispery noises, but he couldn't see any animals anywhere. The deeper into the jungle he went, the surer he was that something was following him. And then he heard whispery noises on both sides of him, as well as behind. So can you imagine being in the jungle and hearing whispery noises? I can imagine that they must have sounded like this. Can you do that? He tried to run, but he tripped over more roots, and the noises only came nearer. Once or twice, he thought he heard something even laughing at him. At last, he came out into a clearing and ran right into the middle of it so that he could see anything that might attack him. Was he surprised when he looked and saw 14 green eyes coming out of the jungle all around the clearing? And suddenly, those 14 eyes turned into 7 tigers. The tigers walked around him in a big circle, looking hungrier all the time, and then they sat down and began to talk. So if you notice, we each have 2 eyes. So he saw 14 eyes looking at him. Well, that's because the first tiger had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it's 7 tigers, but they each have 2 eyes. I suppose you thought we didn't know you were trespassing in our jungle. Oh boy. Here they are. Get a good look. 7 tigers. Can you imagine seeing 7 tigers? Then the next tiger spoke. I suppose you're going to say you didn't know it was our jungle. Did you know that not one explorer has left this island alive? Said the third tiger. My father thought of the cat and knew this wasn't true. But of course he had too much sense to say so. One does not contradict a hungry tiger. The tigers went on talking in turn. You're our first little boy, you know. I'm curious to know if you're especially tender. Maybe you think we have regular meal times, but we don't. We just eat whenever we're feeling hungry, said the 5th tiger. And we're hungry right now. In fact, I can hardly wait, said the 6th. I can't wait, said the 7th tiger. And then all the tigers said together in a loud roar, let's begin right now! And they all moved closer. My father looked at those 7 hungry tigers, and then suddenly he had an idea. He quickly opened his knapsack and took out the chewing gum. The cat had told him that tigers were especially fond of chewing gum, which was very scarce on the island. So he threw them each a piece of gum, but they only growled, as fond as we are of chewing gum, we think we'd like to eat you even better. And they moved so close that he could feel them breathing on his face. Hold on, said my father. This is special chewing gum. Yeah, if you keep chewing it long enough, the pink chewing gum will actually turn green. And then if you plant it in the ground, it will actually grow more chewing gum. And the sooner you start chewing, then the sooner you'll have more. Do you think he's telling the truth? Think about that. He's giving them each a piece of pink chewing gum. And he says that as they chew it, it's going to turn green. And then as soon as it turns green, they can plant it in the ground and grow more chewing gum. Now, can you plant chewing gum in the ground? No. When we're done with gum, we throw it in the garbage. And then does chewing gum grow a tree? No, it's not a seed. So he is definitely tricking these tigers into chewing what they think is magic chewing gum. The tiger suddenly said, "Why, you don't say. Isn't that fine? It's magic chewing gum." And as each one wanted to be the first to plant the chewing gum, they all unwrapped their pieces and began chewing as hard as they could. Every once in a while, one tiger would look into another tiger's mouth and say, "Is yours green?" "Nope, not done yet." Until finally, all the tigers were so busy chomping on their gum and busy looking into each other's mouths to make sure that no one was getting ahead that they forgot all about my father. So here they all are. And now they completely forgot about him. So now he can sneak away because they're so busy chewing their chewing gum. So we definitely have to do a couple of different things on our board. First of all, we met the tigers. So what do you think the word tiger starts with? Tiger. Good job. Starts with the letter T. So this is what tigers looks like. Okay. And so we can put tigers up here on our chart because we have now met them. And I can see on our map, we need to mark where he is. Now we found the tigers, but there's a couple of other places on our map that I really wanted you to be able to see. If you look really closely, this part right here says swamp. So what he actually did was, remember, he walked through the swamp to the tigers. So I'm going to circle the tigers right here. Okay, because that's where he is. And now, of course, the tigers have forgotten about him. So he's going to get to escape and head somewhere else next. And I'll read you the name of that chapter in just a minute, so you'll get a little hint as to which animal he's going to meet. You can also probably look on your map and find the next closest animal to the tigers, because that would probably be where we would think he would go next, right? So in our knapsack, he used a couple of different things. I crossed out black rubber boots. It's the line that was black, but you heard that he put them back on again in the marsh. So I might put another check by it, or another X, to show that he used his black rubber boots again. Now, I don't know if you remember, but it said he took out his compass. So if you look on your board, it's a dark blue, and it says a compass. And that was what he used to try and tell him where he should go on the island. So I'm going to cross out compass. And then what did he give those tigers? What was the odd thing that the cat had him pack in his knapsack for the tigers? Do you remember? The chewing gum. And we thought that that was so strange, but it ended up being what saved his life. So these are the tricks that the cat told him about. And the cat was right. At first they wanted to eat him, but then they got so excited that they had magic chewing gum that they could plant in the ground that they completely forgot all about him, and he was able to escape. So chewing gum was the very first thing on our list, so I'm going to cross that out because he used it with the tigers. Okay. Now, I told you I would read you the name of the next chapter so we could see where he's going. So this is the cliffhanger. You have to imagine what you think will happen in the next chapter. Chapter 6, my father meets a rhinoceros. So you can look on your map and see where he's headed. And we will read our next chapter the next time we meet. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed it, and come back for the next chapter next time. And there's no place like home. Bye.